Welcome to the first of the Jiu Jitsu Oracle's tier lists, where Calum and I, Ross, are going to rank all of the competitors that are taking part in every ADCC division and both CJI divisions. And the first division that we're going to focus on is the ADCC's under 66 kilogram division. So, Calum, why have we picked this one first?
Yeah, so makes sense going from kind of lightest to heaviest, but the main reason we picked this is because this is the only division out of both events I think that is completely full. This division has been completely untouched by the chaos that is the drama between CGI and ADCC. Makes sense with the 66 guys not wanting to jump into the under 80 division, given that there's some giant guys like Lucas Hulk Barboza and McTavish and he's cutting down. So this division has been completely untouched and nobody has jumped ship over to CGI.
As we rank these competitors, please leave your comments, especially if you're watching on YouTube as we go along, because we would love to hear what you think of our suggestions and also where you put the competitors. Please remember to like and subscribe as well. And if you are listening to the episode through Spotify or one of the other podcast providers, then we'll do our best not to get too distracted by the graphics and make sure we're aware of our listeners and that we're ranking the competitors in a way that you can understand. So, Calum, how are we going to go about this?
Yeah, so before we get started, we've came up with like specific criteria for each category, for each tier. So there's like some specific criteria that we can go to. So we'll just look at a little graphic for that now. So if you can see that, this is the kind of shortened version of what we've got for each category. So S tier means they're like one of the favorites to win the division. So might be one guy, might be a couple guys, but if you're in S tier, you're heavily one of the favorites to win the division. If you're in A tier, it means you've got a good chance to win or to go very deep in the division. For B tier, we've categorized this as the dark horse tier. So if these guys perform well on the day, they could surprise people, they could go very far, they could even win it if it's their day. The C tier, we've categorized this as the disruptors tier. So these people could disrupt a little bit, they could win some matches here or there, they could upset some favorites in the division, but as of yet in their careers, they've not proven enough for us to think that they can go super far or win the division. And then D tier, we've put this as the unproven tier. So as of yet in their careers, they've not shown the capability to be competitive against or beat some of the top names in the division. However, this isn't a bad place to be to go into ADCC, given that this is the kind of place people make names for themselves. So for example, Craig Jones in 2017 probably would have been in this tier, and we know the kind of performance he had. So not a bad place to go into ADCC, but this is kind of people that haven't really proven too much in their careers. They've just made the trials, and this is them kind of starting out their career at the highest level.
Now, this is our first attempt at doing tier lists, so please bear with us as we learn about the optimal way to share the information. And the reason I'm highlighting that right now is because, Calum, what is the classification in C tier currently?
Yeah, so I've made a spelling mistake for the disruptors that Royce pointed out. I couldn't really be bothered doing the whole graphic again, so I've allowed Ross the pleasure of pointing out my spelling mistakes to make an idiot of me.
So in this episode, we are categorizing C tier as disruptors, and in future tier list episodes, we'll have them as disruptors. But we are aware of the little faux pas. But like I said, first attempt, and next time, all the spelling will be correct. And then, to be fair, Calum, for those of you that can see the screen, look at that beautiful graphic that he's created with all 16 guys in the ADCC ready to go, ready to be slotted in, okay? So, Calum, how do you want to go about this?
Yeah, let's just pick some random names. Let's start off with a guy that's just had a good performance on WNO. Let's start with Ethan Crelinsten. So Ethan alongside his opponent beforehand, I probably would have had both of them in the B tier dark horses to win the division, but after that, it's kind of changed my mind on where both those guys are. So I'm kind of tempted now to put Ethan in the A division, just given the performance he just had against another guy in this division, DeAndre Corby, and as well, he's beaten some really good guys like Fabricio Andre in really dominant fashion. So kind of between the two, but I'm a little bit swayed towards A tier. What are you thinking for Ethan?
Yeah, I thought his last performance was very impressive, and it was just a reminder of the fact that Ethan's game suits ADCC very, very well. Great wrestler, great scrimmage wrestler, great in scrambles, very physical, great endurance, hard to tie down, hard to submit. Yeah, I think he could go quite far. I think probably right now I'd be leaning towards like a potential semi-final for Ethan.
Yeah.
So I think that's entirely fair to put him there. And just because like you flagged DeAndre as well, why don't we just keep chatting about him a little bit? But yeah, great for DeAndre to have come through trials. Very difficult to qualify through trials, the USA trials. So he won, I think, the second iteration of the trials to get through. But I think we maybe saw against Ethan that like he's still developing, still on the come up, as it were. You know, and I think Ethan like just looked like a much more physical grappler than DeAndre. What did you think of DeAndre's showing against Ethan, and like how that might affect where we put him here?
Yeah, so I think like he looked good in spots, like he was competitive in the wrestling until he shot in and he ate that heavy sprawl from Ethan. That ended up with him being on the bottom. Got some good leg entanglements against Ethan, but then again, Ethan was able to get out of that, and that was kind of the beginning of the end once he passed off of that. So yeah, definitely looked like a really upping of the level of experience. We've seen DeAndre be really active in the competition scene the past couple of years and beat some really good names. So beforehand, I was thinking of putting him in the B tier, but I'm not sure now. But just to confirm, we've got Ethan in the A tier, so I can move him up to that, correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So let's put Ethan in A tier. But yeah, for DeAndre, I would have had him personally in B before, but just kind of seeing how he did against Ethan, a guy that's going to be in his division. I'm thinking more towards C. I definitely think he could be a big disruptor. If he gets one of the favourites early, I think if he performs well, he could give an upset. I'm just not too sure after that recent performance how deep he could go in the division.
Yeah, I think dark horse category for me is like you have to have an outside chance if the stars align that you could go all the way. And I don't see DeAndre doing that, but I do agree that he could definitely even take out a big name potentially if he has a great match. But at this stage, it would probably have to be the match of his life, the best match that he's had so far to be able to do that. It's not to say he can't, but I think like that is potentially his ceiling here. You know, maybe taking out a big name early, but then, you know, could he take out multiple big names? Probably not at this stage from what we've seen. So I think you're right to put DeAndre there.
Okay, sticking DeAndre in C tier for now. Okay, so let's go with the other American Trials winner, Dorian Olivares. For me, this guy screams B tier, screams dark horse. I think not seeing him against the top guys enough to really definitively put him in A or S. I think that's obvious. However, I think he's got quite a bit of aura about him. I think stylistically, obviously, got a really good style for ADCC. Very physical, good gas tank, good wrestling, good at not getting entangled. And I think that could be like a really big nightmare matchup for some of the bigger names in this division. What's your thoughts on him?
I agree. I just want to see what happens to Dorian if he gets swept by a very, very good grappler in a way that his back hits the mat. Yeah. You know, so like say he goes up against a Baby Shark, who's a superb tactician as well as practitioner. I could imagine Baby Shark sweeping him in a way that makes it hard for Dorian to get his back off the mat within the requisite period not to have points scored against him, for example. So that's the bit of his game that we've not really seen much of. He's got great wrestling, and he's really used that in his passing game, where he's in and out, and people are not wanting to stand up against him or come up on him in a way that they're just going to get taken back down. But I think there is like a big question mark around quite a significant part of the game with Dorian. But what we've seen with him is he is exceptional at his A game, as it were. And I think his A game is good enough to beat maybe not just one, but multiple people. And he's not like, he's like used to wrestling meets, etc. So like multiple matches across 2 days isn't going to be a problem for him. So I agree. I think that's a good slot for him, Calum.
He is the archetypal B tier athlete, so we'll stick him in there. Okay, so let's move over to Europe, and let's look at some of the guys that won the European trials. So let's have a look first at someone that's been in ADCC before, Ashley Williams. For me...
Hold on. But
yeah.
If we might pause. So I think you might have said one European trials. So
yeah.
Previously
won European trials. So you can invite this time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just keeping the house in order, just in case we've got any people ready to jump into YouTube comments and say, I didn't win this time.
Comment. I'll take a comment and it's going to correct me. That's fine. So yeah, Ash won the trials before the last Worlds, got an invite this time after having a very close match with another European trials winner. Well, 2 close matches actually, Owen and Gerbeck. So looking at Ash first, quite a veteran in this weight class, in this division now, fought some of the biggest names. We've seen how he's done against some of the bigger names. He's not really pulled it off against some of the bigger names. He beat Ethan a while back on a close match in Polaris, but guys like Baby Shark, Gabriel Souza, we've seen him against. He's came up short. I would say C tier for him, just given his veteran status. We know he could disrupt a little bit, give some guys some tough matches, but I don't see a world where Ash wins this division at this moment.
No. I think for Ash, if he could get to the second day, that would be a big achievement. Just the depth in this division as well, like, and because he didn't win, I know he's an invitee, but like, it's kind of that thing of like, he's not an invitee because he's a previous champ, and he's not a trials winner. So like, where's he going to seed? And, probably be like a lower seed, I would think. I'm not quite sure how it's going to shake out, but I could see Ash getting a big name early doors, and it's going to be tough for him to win a match, never mind like win 2 matches and get into the second day. Yeah. That said, it's Ash credit, like he's got the experience. He's like decently well rounded. He is hard to submit. So like if the match becomes like a tactical battle, etc., like I think that would play in his favor. But I just don't know if like he's going to be able to take out a big name first round and then like get off and running, never mind like win multiples of those matches. So yeah, I think that's a fair analysis, Calum.
Cool. Let's stick him in C just below DeAndre. So sticking around Europe, let's look at Owen Jones, who beat Ash in the semi-finals of his trials run. So Owen kind of just breaking out onto that level. I think he's had a match against a couple guys in this division. Obviously Ash, who we mentioned, he beat Ash, and then he had a match against Fabricio on a European sub-only card. I think that was like a little bit before Owen kind of rose to the level he's at now and broke out onto the scene, but he lost the match to Fabricio. Fabricio passed his guard, etc. But to be fair, Owen held his own, managed to not get submitted or held down in any bad position for too long. But I think just given that he's kind of breaking onto this sort of level of competition, couldn't really put him any higher than C tier. I think he's still a little bit unproven, although I do think he could be a destructor and could shock some people with a good performance.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he beat Ash means that like he shouldn't be any lower than Ash.
Yeah,
but I think they're, to be fair, like their match when I remember it, was, you know, it was pretty close. I think there was a moment maybe Ash thought like, he should have got points, or maybe Owen shouldn't. I can't remember exactly, but it was a close match. Owen's got that like style that can be difficult. He can be scrambly, opportunistic. He's obviously had a fair bit of success with the reverse close guard, which isn't like the most common position.
Might not be used to seeing, which we see with like Lachlan Giles bringing out some tech people weren't really used to yet. So that's definitely a strong weapon in someone's arsenal if they've got something that people aren't used to seeing.
Yeah, so what are we thinking, Calum? Just slot him in next to Ash there?
I think C tier, I think above Ash. So the further left they are, closer to like the letters, the higher up in that division. So I would put him just above Ash in C tier.
Okay. And then are we going for Gerbeck next?
Yeah, let's go for Gerbeck. So for a couple of these guys on the ADCC website, I couldn't get their official profile with the name, so just got a different photo of them. But yeah, Gerbeck, he is an interesting one. I'm really struggling to kind of know where to place him. So Gerbeck has lost to Ash in the trials before. That was the one Ash won. He beat him in a super close decision, I think. And then last time they fought in trials, the most recent one, second European trials, Gerbeck won a close decision to Ash. Other names he's fought on this. So on the AIGA circuit, he had a match with Fabricio Andre, another really close match. Fabricio standing with Gerbeck, who's Russian, known for his wrestling, and Gerbeck was able to edge out a close decision in that one, or off a score. I can't remember exactly how that was kind of scored, but it was a close match anyway. So that's a big win for him. So I'm kind of unsure whether to put him in B or C, to be honest, because like he's got the same sort of kind of dark horse energy as Dorian, having that strong wrestling base, strong skill set for ADCC, but still maybe a little bit unproven, even though he's beating guys like Ash and Fabricio. So I'm kind of stuck between those two divisions. So what's your thoughts on Gerbeck on this list?
I mean, he's wrestle heavy.
Yeah.
So that plays into his favour. I mean, who's taking him down? It's going to be very, very difficult. Yeah. Maybe Dorian. But then again...
Fabricio took him down maybe once or twice, but like Fabricio was like probably, you could definitely say, the most athletic guy in this division with some of the best wrestling. So like he was able to put him down once or twice, but definitely wasn't able to keep him there or like completely win the wrestling exchanges. So that's literally just Fabricio. We don't really know how Dorian stacks up to Fabricio as far as wrestling. So yeah, those two guys are the kind of only ones I can think of that would give him an issue in that department. Maybe Baby Shark as well. But yeah, from the stand-up perspective, it's going to be tough for anyone to deal with him, I think.
So then comes, can you tactically get to the ground against them? But I think the one thing with him is, like, yeah, it's just, like you said, there's a couple of names he's done well against, but it's like, his resume isn't deep with matches, never mind successes against, like, top guys. So, like, already the fact that like Dorian came through a US trials and looked great, you know, and beat like a good number of like, you know,
Ethan, who's above him on this list, but it's just Ethan's a bit more like accomplished as far as the guys in this division.
But also Ethan, to be fair, like I think Ethan's looked really, really good recently. And like the thing about Dorian is like we haven't seen much of him submission grappling, so I think Ethan, like, until Ethan's, like, last, like, couple of performances, like, I don't think I'd have had him A tier.
Yeah.
He looked really, really good recently.
Agreed.
So, yeah, with Gerbeck, like, I'd be inclined to go C, but he could be a B. He'd either be, like, the end of, well, I don't know. I think he's round about that ballpark. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, let's put him top of C tier.
For now, yeah.
Right in front of DeAndre there. Okay, so that's just cleared out the European athletes. So let's go over to Asia and Australia. So we've got two guys from this. First one, Ethan Thomas. Don't know a lot about Ethan. Couldn't find his record on BJJ Heroes, but as far as I'm aware, this is kind of like him breaking onto the scene, punching his ticket to the ADCC. I don't think he's really shown much in the way of competing with the kind of caliber of guys in this division. Have you got anything you know about Ethan, or you'd like to add to that?
No, I agree. I mean, I'll be seeing him pretty much for, other than clips, etc., that came out of the Asian trials. He's a new guy on the scene for me, and he's going to get like a low seed. I think both the guys coming out of Asia are going to be 15, 16. So what you're going to get first round, we'll see who we put S tier, right? But like, you're going to be up against these guys. So don't give anything away. People have to stick.
No, but we know without giving anything away, we know the kind of seed, and it's going to be like Pato, Gabriel Souza, Baby Shark. That's the kind of guys at the top seeds. So yeah, against those guys, he's definitely not shown yet that he could even really be competitive against those guys. But like we say, not a bad place to be going into ADCC. If he gets an upset, even against one of those guys, or has like a semi-deep run, that's going to be massive for his career. So it'd be awesome if he can get that done. But it's just at this point in his career, I don't think he's shown that.
Well, I don't know whether you said it to me or on the pod earlier, but like, where would Craig Jones have placed?
Yeah, he would have been probably D tier going into 2017 and saw the kind of run he had. So definitely not a bad place to be. We're just judging it off what we've seen so far.
Okay. So yeah, I think that's fair. But then so both Asian trials winners are going to be in D tier, right?
Yeah, so the other one, going to try pronounce the name again. I think it is Jiu something along those lines. Anyway, so I was really impressed watching his trials performance. He looked really good, very varied skill set. However, big difference to the guys competing in that division at the Asian Oceanic Trials and the guys competing in that division at Worlds. As far as I'm aware, maybe he's had a match with Ethan before, but Ethan Thomas, but the only guy I can remember him having a match against was Fabricio again in Aiga. So I think Jiu was in Joseph Chen's team, the Alion team, and Fabricio was in the Modelfo team, and I think those two had a match. Fabricio in control the whole time, won it pretty convincingly. I can't remember if he got the submission or not. I just remember him like being in complete control, passing his guard, etc. So I'd be inclined to put Zhu Hangjing in D tier as well, just off of what we've seen so far.
Do you have a preference over which way around the two guys in D tier go?
I'm going to put Zhu Hangjing the king of this tier, just because I really liked watching the trials, and I hope he does well, because I thought his game was really cool, very varied, and quite impressed that someone in that part of the world that might not have the highest development of jiu-jitsu as of yet had that sort of skill set.
Okay, Callum, we've got those two guys. So why don't we next focus on the South American trials, because we're going through the trials winners as it is, and we've got two trials winners from South America, and then we've got an invitee who did well at both of those South American trials. So that gives us three names to look at now.
Okay, so we'll go through the invitee, who was Caio Gabriel, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Okay,
so I'm just trying to think who he has had match against. He had a match against Fabricio that he lost out to. Did he have one against Kennedy as well?
Well, he came second twice.
Yeah, so I remember him doing all right against Fabricio until the end of the match. Do you remember his match against Kennedy?
Not off the top of my head.
No.
What I was going to say, I do remember his runs up to the final more than I remember the actual final performances. So he's very good in on the legs and a big submission threat.
Aiga as well looked really good. For me, it's struggling between D and C for this one, just because we've seen him be pretty competitive against Fabricio, looked pretty good in Aiga, but again, that's not beating Fabricio, so he doesn't really have any names in ADCC as far as I'm aware that he's beaten. So I'm kind of stuck between C and D for this one.
I was going to suggest the forefront of the D tier would be a good slot for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. So just unproven as of yet. See how he does when he gets into Worlds. But yeah, hasn't really proven himself to be able to beat much of the guys that he will likely face off against early rounds in this. So
what I will say is, for anyone who's followed the Jiu Jitsu Oracle way back to when we first started, which was just at the Europeans in the GI earlier this year, and then we got into the South American trials pretty quickly, and we were speaking about how much we enjoy watching Kawhi Gabriel's performances. So he's been one that we've mentioned way back. So he's like, he is definitely a legitimate submission threat if he gets in on your legs. So, you know, from that point of view, you could make the argument that he's a disruptor. I just don't think he's got the resume to be any higher than he is yet.
Yeah.
But he could shock. He will get a big name first round. But because he's got that sub threat, you never know. Like it could be a bit of a Craig Jones moment that we get to see.
Yeah.
Okay.
The two trials winner got Kennedy and Fabricio. So I was looking Kennedy first because he won the first trial. So it's interesting, Kennedy winning the trials to do this when he has made it to the finals of Worlds before. So he is a former ADCC World Silver medalist. And we've spoken about this in a ton of episodes, but Kennedy seemed like his first year or two coming out of black belt was amazing. One of the top guys, silver at ADCC Worlds, did well in other events, and then didn't really see him do as well for a short period of time. And then this year, he's really came back with a vengeance, winning a lot of the GI majors, winning trials pretty convincingly. And then he is coming with that silver medal in his pocket as well from Worlds. So obviously he's just coming off of trials, but I'd be tempted to put him in A tier just because we know he can podium. He got put out by Pato last time, if I'm not mistaken. Pato is also one of the best guys in this division. So I'd actually be tempted to put Kennedy in A tier.
Well, I think interesting with Kennedy's year came up when we were chatting with our friend Shane Montague, who helped us preview the IBJJF Worlds, that Kennedy was going into looking for a Grand Slam, having won Euros, Pans, and Brasileiro. That there are quite a few matches that Kennedy has won this year that really kind of could have gone either way. Now, you could say, on the one hand, Kennedy's become incredibly skilled at winning close matches, which is a great feather in his cap. Or you could look at the other side of the coin and say, well, everything just fell into place from Kennedy from that point of view, ref decisions went his way, etc. And otherwise, he wouldn't have been on that potential Grand Slam run. So I'm still considering how to judge his year thus far. Other than he's had a fantastic year, you can't take that. I'm not taking that away from him. But it was kind of is Kennedy has he worked loads out and he's tactically and strategically, etc., just on it, or have a couple of things fallen his way and it makes it look like that? So that's the kind of thing I'm getting at. What I would say is there will be some wars in this division, and Kennedy has definitely shown an ability to win those close matches and win and do that multiple times through his year. Yeah. So he is going to be very, very hard to beat, and he's very hard to beat decisively. And then so if you're not beating him decisively, you get into that thing of oh, it's a close match and he could go either way. And then maybe Kennedy's just great at doing stuff that scores well in the eyes of referees and judges. Although thus far it's been more IBJJF than ADCC, and we know it's scored and looked at differently. So I'm torn. Either king of B tier or in A tier. But then we've got Ethan Crelinsten in A tier right now, and I would definitely put Kennedy on a par with Ethan. Yeah. So why don't we just slot him into A tier for now? I think that's fair. We wouldn't put him as high as S. Don't think he's nailed on to get to well, I say nailed on, but odds high that, or low as it were, that he's going to get to a final. But like, I think A alongside Ethan looks like a good spot for him just now. I think like he would deservedly be ahead of Dorian.
Yeah, he has obviously got to the final before, but I think the thing with this division, it's very much like the next generation compared to the one that he got silver at. So very much like a fresh division compared to the worlds he competed at. So we'll see how he does against this like newer generation in this division.
All right, let's try and get through the other troops in about 15 minutes, Calum.
Sounds good. So we'll go over the other Brazilian trials winner, Fabricio Andre. So Fabricio's had an interesting year, managed to win that trials, and actually some of his most impressive wins have been like odd circumstances, just in the fact that they've been in like absolute division. So I think his most impressive win this year has been beating the 88 kilogram former ADCC champion Giancarlo Bodoni, which was just insane to watch. And he also beat Owen Livesley in what was pretty much like a wrestling match. So he's had some ridiculously impressive performances. Ridiculous athlete, I think, like alongside Mika, one of the most athletic guys in the sport. Really good stand-up, nightmare to take down, very good counter wrestling, very good passing on top. We saw him look pretty good against Pato, even though he lost the match. He managed to pass Diego Pato's guard at the most recent Who's Number One. So just overall caliber of athlete, some of the performances he's had, I would be looking to put him in A tier.
I think so. Top of the A tier for me just now.
Top, even though Ethan has that win against him.
I just think like Fabricio's got like more submission threat than Ethan. I think like Fabricio, like I had Fabricio to win the last ADCC, like, and I think you said you were going to pick him or Baby Shark.
Yeah. Between those two, and the interesting thing is now they're not teammates, so they are unlikely to have to face each other early rounds because they'll probably be two of the top seeds. So that was difficult for those two. Obviously, they had to fight each other in the second match, but that's not going to be the case anymore.
So, but I think Fabricio does have that ability to beat absolutely anyone out of anywhere. So because he's got that threat, I always like lean towards him. I think like, you know, you're weighing up the match in your head, and then you think, yeah, but Fabricio could just like snatch an armbar from anywhere, from a takedown. So if you want to put him after Ethan, I'd be cool with that.
I'll go with your shout.
But I think like in those guys like are, and to be fair, like again, Kennedy could beat Fabricio in a match. So I think like although like we're trying to separate guys as much as possible, like at the same time, I think like those three are like knitted together quite well just now. So I'm not going to split hairs over like what order you want to put them in.
Yeah, that's fair. Let me try split up these next few guys, these last few guys, to make it interesting. So we will go with guy that we just mentioned there, Diego Pato. So he got bronze at the last ADCC Worlds, but since then he has had maybe the most impressive like year and a half in the sport, just in general, between gi and no gi. He's won gi Worlds. He has won 2 different belts in 2 different weight classes at Who's Number One. He's just had like an insane year and a bit. So because of that, I'm going to want to put him in S tier.
I think the last guy his size to beat him might have been Sam the Guy quite a while ago now.
Yeah.
And the only other loss I can remember him having was against Scooby in an absolute match.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really count, right? You know what I mean? So he, and like his run is been exceptional and taken out many a name along the way. So there's no, like, when I look at, I don't bet, but like when I look at odds and stuff like that to help with like judgments as to who might win in sport, I always think to myself, like, you don't bet against the guy that's winning. Like, you don't look for a way that guy might lose. You know, sometimes you're in the gym and you're chatting about, like, who might win a fight. And you always get the person who, like, deliberately picks the underdogs. So, like, if the big shock happens, they get to say, I told you so, right? But, like, how often does that happen? Very rare. Like, you look at form, and, like, Pato's on one of the best runs of form in Jiu-Jitsu right now. Like, up there with, like, Mika and Gordon for winning streaks. So it's like, I can't see why he wouldn't be S tier. So, totally agree. Plus,
S tier, but just to play devil's advocate, I think the one thing going against him is, not to say that he doesn't have this skill set, he's maybe been working on it, we've seen it in some capacity, but I think not seeing his wrestling to the fullest extent, and we know how important that skill set is in ADCC, so I think that would be like the only real thing going against him. But just like every other aspect of his jiu-jitsu, like I've said before, I think he's the best leg locker in the world. His overall guard is amazing, his top game is amazing, so I think that would be the only thing kind of going against him that could be an exploitable weakness. But aside from that, clear S tier in my opinion.
Although no stranger to ADCC and has done decently before, right? So he knows his way around being on the feet. But yeah, if there are a couple of, like, I mean, it will be interesting if he gets a Gerbeg or Dorian early doors.
Yeah.
But yeah, he should have, especially with, like, as you like to say, like the genius Guy Mendes in his corner, AOJ. So, like, he should have ways to get it to the ground that are, like, safe and not going to result in, like, losing points. So, but yeah, just the run of form, one of the best guys in the world right now, pound for pound. Yeah, I think he has to be S.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
In there. So, let's see, we see on over. Okay, so next, let's have a look at Josh Cisneros. So Josh, if I remember correctly, he got to the semi-finals at last Worlds, and he lost to Pato in that match, which resulted in Pato getting the bronze. I don't know.
Did he lose to Pato or Baby Shark?
That was the bronze bronze match, I think. So I think they both lost their semi-final, and then Pato won that bronze medal match.
I've got Josh down as losing to Baby Shark that year on my notes.
Yeah, so if he lost the bronze, he would have lost twice, right? He would have lost the semi-final.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, yeah.
And on the first day, he beat Ethan and Sam McNally.
Yeah. So I think he's quite an underrated guy in this division. Not really seen much of him, and I think that kind of lends to why he is underrated some of the time. But he's got a really good skill set for this division. He's got really good wrestling, very dynamic and quick. I would be tempted to put him in dark horse. I think if it's his day, obviously we're not really seeing much of him as of late, but I think if it's his day, if he performs well, he could have quite an impressive run.
I think that's fair based on his pedigree. Like I said, I've not seen much of him recently, but you have to go with what's on his resume. So, like you said, the fact that, like, he had a that is a good showing in 2022 in what of late has always been, like, a real deep division. So yeah, let's go for that, Calum.
Cool. Yeah. E tier. Okay, let's have a look at Keith Rikorian, stick to another American invitee. For him, I think C tier, I'm quite confident putting him there. I don't really see a situation where he has a shot at winning the division, or even going, like, as far as a final, say, but he has beaten some of the guys in this division before. He's been at this level for quite a while, can definitely disrupt a little bit, maybe have an upset here or there, so I would put him in C tier.
Yeah, I think Keith really has become one of those guys you always look forward to seeing at trials. And you know, but then even that said, like, he always has, like, deep runs at trials and, like, loads of highlight moments, but, you know, not like a serial winner of trials. So, but he has had his successes there. But yeah, definitely, like, yeah, could win a match. I agree. But is he going to go to, like, semis and finals in a division as deep as this? I think, you know, that's unlikely unless either the tournament opens up with some shocks around about him, or he just has like the absolute 2 days of his life. So I think that's fair judgment, Calum.
Yeah, cool. Sticking him in C tier. So let's look at Gabriel Souza. Next, we've won. We got to the final at last ADCC Worlds, getting silver. He's looked good the past couple of years. Not quite on the level of like Pato per se, even though he did better than Pato at last ADCC Worlds, and I think he beat him in the semi-final, if I'm right in saying that.
Have you had a glitch?
Where did I cut out there?
No, it was just like
I was just waiting for your.
You're looking for my validation.
Yeah, I was waiting for your confirmation that I believe he beat Pato at the last ADCC Worlds.
I believe you.
Yeah, so obviously that would, off of that alone, you would think putting him in S tier, but I think just the last couple of years he's had good performances. He's also been beat here or there, so I would think like top at A tier for Gabriel Souza. I think he can definitely make it back to the final. He could definitely win if he has a good day, but I would put him as one of the clear favourites.
No, especially after his most recent performance.
Yeah.
So lost to Mikey, yes, in the revenge match for Mikey.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Top of A tier?
Yes, let's do it. So then that leaves one person, right? Sitting all by himself, the champ.
Yeah, so I think it's obvious what tier we're putting him in. I think the interesting part is whether he's going to be to the left of Pato or to the right of Pato. So Baby Shark obviously won this division last time around. He's looked good as well in the past couple of years, but not as good as Pato. And in their last match, even though Baby Shark unfortunately got injured in the match, it's still a win for Pato at the end of the day in that match. So what are you thinking? I think it's obvious we both would like to put him in S tier. It's just whereabout in S tier.
Yeah, he has to go S tier. And for me, Pato's ahead of him just because Baby Shark hasn't been as active. Way less active than Pato.
Yeah.
I don't know how bad that injury was, because I think after it he only had one other match. I don't remember him. The aforementioned Shea Montague, Baby Shark had a match against, but other than that, there's not been much going on. Yes, or am I missing stuff?
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair thing to say.
So just on competition schedule, strength of schedule, shall we say, a term we like using on this pod. I think you have to put Pato ahead, although Baby Shark more credentialed, having won the whole tournament last time. I think it's the interesting thing with those two guys is that Baby Shark for his age, I think because he carries that Baby Shark moniker as well, is sometimes you kind of maybe think his grappling's less mature than it is, because Baby Shark kind of comes from a kid's show, but he is one of the savviest grapplers out there. So he is going to be hard to beat for anyone. So yeah, even although the run that Pato's been on, anyone beating Baby Shark, I'm now thinking especially coming up against all these different types of people, although Pato will have game plans via gi, no doubt, for each grappler, but I just think Baby Shark's going to be very, very hard to beat. But anyway, S tier, I think just you could make an argument either way as to who's the king of the S tier, but I just think it has to go, for me, it should go to Pato based on 2024 thus far.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. If we kind of look at the flags here, very much dominated by the Brazilians when we get to the S and A tier, so they're doing pretty good in this division at the upper ends.
Yes. We did a show a good few months ago now, and we started predicting as to whether it would essentially which country would win more divisions. Would it be US, would it be Brazil, and then would the rest of the world come up with anything? And we saw this 66 division was nailed on for a Brazilian winner. So can Ethan or Dorian come through and, cause an upset and like make sure there's not one of those like Brazilian powerhouses on top of the podium at the end. It's going to be very, very difficult. So I would think like S tier, maybe put the Brazilian flag as the first of the S tier, because I think that's where the strength truly lies. But yeah, that's how the first tier list from the Oracle is looking, and we're going to go through every division. Now, we aim for 45 minutes. We've hit 45 minutes, Calum, so that is a good sign. But I just want to flag up a couple of things, right? I know there was a Who's Number One event, and Calum and I were away training and even doing a bit of coaching at the SBG UK summer camp in Manchester. And then I went away to Dublin. So although we've seen the event, it's by the time it came to potentially recapping it, like yonks had passed. But I just want to flag up a couple of performances. So we saw Gordon Ryan beat Josh Saunders, kind of as expected, right? But the interesting thing with that is like Gordon's now committed to doing a super fight against Felipe Pena and is no longer doing the over 99 kilogram division. And there's another super fight that got announced, I think between our last pod and this one, and that is that Mikey Musumeci is going to be at the Craig Jones Invitational against an as yet to be named opponent, although we know it's not going to be any of these guys that we've mentioned. I think there was an Instagram story I saw with Craig where some of the names were flagged up, and he's like, yeah, it's not going to be Pato, etc. So, an as yet to be named opponent for Mikey at CJI, but Calum loves watching Mikey compete, don't you? So you're going to be pretty excited to see Mikey in action, whomever it is, against.